little gray beams, floated a cow with a Bigfoot Sasquatch in the background.
So hi guys, I did want to do a different video. I felt that I've been putting out some of my footage, some of my thoughts, and it's difficult for you guys to keep up with my line of thought if I don't show you the base, my know-how base, and what I believe and what I base my beliefs in. So I did some kind of a presentation showing you guys my baseline information about Sasquatch, what I think and I consider to be the baseline and the most important baseline for anyone wanting to research on Sasquatch. So there are two divergent theories or beliefs, and inside the community, these two divergent theories are like the name says, are divergent, and people that believe that Sasquatch is just an ape, an hominid, a bipedal physical being, flesh and blood, they generally don't accept the paranormal and the ET connection with the Sasquatch, or coming along with Sasquatch. They generally rule out all of that. They simply don't acknowledge that. And if we want to know what's really about Sasquatch and this phenomena, we have to analyze all the data available, all the reports, all of the theories, all beliefs, all different data that it's come available to us. So two divergent theories: the hominid bipedal physical being and the paranormal ET connection. In the paranormal ET connection, I really not saying that Sasquatch could not be an hominid and could not be bipedal and could not be a physical being. It could, because paranormal is just what doesn't fit inside the normal, inside our reality, so we call it paranormal. What is paranormal today will not be paranormal 50 years in the future, 100 years in the future. You understand me? So Sasquatch could have a paranormal side of it, could have an ET connection, and could be an hominid. Could be bipedal, could be a physical being, but could have all those paranormal and attributes, all that ET connection that we are going to see on the next slides. So Sasquatch, or Bigfoot, Sabe, as it is known in North America, it is known in Australia as a Yowie, in China as a Yeren, in the Himalayas region as the Yeti, in Europe as the Wildman. So, but most of them, besides Bigfoot, most of them, the name relates to forest man, forest people. So I just wanted for you guys to realize that in all these years in the past, people didn't call it wild ape or any other thing relating to ape. Always about man and people. Okay? Starting with Sasquatch, the physical being, and the ape. We are going to see historic records and facts, witness, visual testimonies, photos and video. You probably know the Patterson Gimli footage. everything about footprints, mid-tarsal break, mainly Jeff Meldrum area. Dr. Jeff Meldrum, a very well-known anatomist. We are talking about air, DNA, the genome study of the Dr. Melba Ketchum. We are going to talk about audio, and from the example is the Sierra sounds, the most known, the most credible evidence, at least known and acknowledged by all of the community. And we are going to talk about morphology and anatomy in pictures that are unique, and we are going to give an example of tinker analysis. Okay, so we are going to start with historic records and texts. There is worldwide folklore about wild men, about Sasquatch phenomena. Since the early times, since the beginning of civilizations, the story of Enkidu in ancient Babylon, there are stories about wild men. In the ancient Vedas, there is the only thing that they relate to ape men. It's in the ancient Vedas there were the people that were related to apes and that helped humans in battles with the Vishnu carriages that were described as carriages, but they were like spacecraft. But this is not proved. This is just in the Vedas. It's mainly written. But during the medieval times, at least in Europe, it was very common. Even in the caliphate, Muslim caliphates in the North Africa, there are tapestries with wild men depicted in their art. So there were in numerous tapestries. There are at least around Europe, in most countries, including Portugal, many things in Britain, in France, in chapels. There are many figures sculptured in rock, in churches, in chapels, with wild men, with leaf men. All of those motifs are all around you if you come to Europe. Most people don't realize it, but if you pay close attention, the leaf man, the wild man, it's a very common subject. That main figure that you see with a gray man covered with fur or with hair, with the leopard, it's one of the coat of arms in Portugal. There's another figure also, but this one it's pretty wild. The Patterson and Gimli film. The footage was filmed in 1967 by Roger Patterson and Bob Gimli alongside Bluff Creek, a tributary of the Klamath River in California. The best Bigfoot video evidence captured ever. The subject was a female nicknamed Patty. I think most of you know this footage. It's fairly known even by people that don't follow the community. This is amazing because it has been, some people have been trying over the years to debunk, but they can't do it. The footage is pretty good. It would be very difficult. It is proven that it's not the people in a monkey suit, as you can see by its walk. It has a very fluid walk. You can see the anatomy and the angle of the legs. They push the foot backwards to a degree that humans don't. There are innumerous people on YouTube showing you that they put the heels up. We generally, we humans don't. When we put one step in front of the other, the foot that stays behind generally doesn't do that angle so upwards, like you could see all the palm of the foot, as you can see on the beginning. It was called Patty because it was a female. It has hanging breasts, so it would be very difficult for anyone in 1967 to make a suit that could in fact be so good that could even imitate a female with hanging breasts, you know. The site has been discovered in the last 10 years. It's very different now. The vegetation has grown, but some of the trunks and some of the stones are still in place, and people could go to the place where it was filmed. This is a riverbank. It's all full of sand because the river must, during the winter, have washed away all the trees and create all of this mess that it cleared out. In fact, it cleared out all of the riverbank. So that's why it was possible for Bob Gimlin to record this awesome footage that till this date there is no other footage as good and as convincing as this one. So Dr. Jeff Meldrum. Dr. Jeff Meldrum is a full professor of anatomy and anthropology at Idaho State University since 1993. He teaches human anatomy in the Graduate Health Professions program. His research encompasses questions of vertebrate evolutionary morphology, generally primate locomotor adaptations, more particularly and especially the emergence of modern human bipedalism. So Dr. Jeff is the scientist in the community that everyone wants to go, everyone asks for help. He really has the knowledge to evaluate Sasquatch footprints. He has done a lot of research. He has a huge footprint cast library. He have done and they have written papers with colleagues of him, other scientists like Chinese scientists, about the Yeren and about the Sasquatch and how about the footprints in China are basically the same type and the same anatomy and morphology of the foot. It's the same as in North America. So if they are the same species or different species, at least they are very related. And now they can be apart because China it has no land mass that contact with North America, but in the past they could have been they could have branched from one evolutionary line that Dr. Jeff Meldrum thinks of. So he advocates for an ancient evolutionary line of an hominid, of a human species or a hominid species. He does not believe that they are people. He is on the ape camp. He generally speaks about Gigantopithecus. I don't really think that now he believes that Gigantopithecus it's the same, because there are a lot of evidence that Gigantopithecus it's not Sasquatch. But Dr. Jeff Meldrum is the person to go when you want to know anything scientific about Sasquatch, and he does a lot of research and gives all the credentials and for you to believe, and with a scientific background, that Sasquatch is indeed real.
So guys, this is a paper done by Jeff Meldrum and Bill Mons. It was published on Relict Hominoid Inquiry. It's named Surface Anatomy and Subcutaneous Adipose Tissues Features in the Analysis of the Patterson Gimli Film Hominid. So it is an amazing paper that if you guys Google it by the title, you can find it and you can read it for yourselves. I'm just going to show you the pictures, because the pictures on the paper, they show you really what's going on with the tissue, with the fat tissue, and Dr. Jeff Meldrum was comparing the fat tissue that is seen on Patty on the footage with the fat tissue with naked human species. So as you can see, you see the same curves, the same body fat tissue accumulating on Patty's back and in human species. You can see the same going on the back of a gorilla and a chimp, and you cannot see that on a suit, on a chimpanzee, on a Bigfoot hoaxing suit. As you can see, the shape, you can see it all right. You can see it by the looks. You can see that it's fake. It's completely fake. It doesn't have the human anatomy. The suit cannot do the trick. And in 1963, it would be impossible, completely impossible. So, more naked photos. I'm sorry, guys, if you are offended, but that's research, and we don't have to be ashamed of anything. That's our human body and how it accumulates fat and how it's completely the same. You can see the same in Patty. The same in a gorilla. The suit issue, that it does not have the correct shape of a human body. The cheeks on the butt, comparing with the female. So Patty was a female, and that's it. Here the breast and the axilla, on the armpits. So it's amazing. The Patterson Gimli footage, it's amazing, and Dr. Jeff Meldrum has done a lot for the Sasquatch and for the validity, the scientific validity of the subject.
So now we have to go back to Gigantopithecus. Gigantopithecus blacki. It is an extinct genus of an ape from roughly 2 million to 350,000 years ago, during the early to the middle Pleistocene of southern China. Gigantopithecus was once argued to be an hominin, a member of the human line, but is now thought to be closely allied with orangutans. So they have been done DNA, and it clusters very near the orangutan species. So that's why you see on the pictures above the first picture, it looks like a Sasquatch, because they represent a few decades ago they would represent Gigantopithecus as a Sasquatch, and now scientists are agreeing that it's like a very big orangutan. So the only remains found were teeth, molars, and 4 mandibles. So only the lower jaws. They have 4 lower jaws of Gigantopithecus. So Gigantopithecus was traditionally being restored as a massive gorilla, like I was saying a while ago. Massive gorilla-like ape, potentially 200 and 300 kilograms, so 440, 660 pounds when alive, but the paucity of remains make total size estimates highly speculative. So they were not as big, and they were not as like Sasquatch. They were like orangutans, most probably. And it is highly speculative because you don't have bones, you don't have a skeleton. Even if you don't have it from a Sasquatch, you don't have it from a Gigantopithecus. You only have molar teeth, a few hundreds of them, and 4 mandibles, the lower jaws of the Gigantopithecus black. However, the scientists have managed to take out DNA from those teeth, or from the lower jaw. I really don't know from where was it taken, but they have sequenced the DNA, and the DNA clusters right next to the orangutan. Not even with gorilla. So they were very much like orangutans and not as we all think Sasquatch Bigfoot is. Okay, so please stop with the Gigantopithecus blacki theory. It was not a Gigantopithecus. I think that even Dr. Jeff Meldrum knows by now that it was not a Gigantopithecus. You don't have the skeletons, you don't have anything, and it's highly speculative that it was Gigantopithecus. Okay? So, theory of being an ape doesn't have much into it to back up skeletons or another species to back up the theory that it is indeed an ape. It's a primate. We have to differentiate between primates, and primates are all of us, hominids or apes, but hominids could be humans, and pongids and other ones are apes that are different from monkeys. Monkeys generally have tail. Apes do not have tail, are more in the branch, are more like primates and hominids like us. Okay, now we are going to speak about Dr. Melba Ketchum. Dr. Melba Ketchum, she has some controversy on the community, but it has the validity, and it brings the validity to the scientific validity to Sasquatch, as other scientists do. So Dr. Melba Ketchum holds a doctorate in veterinary medicine. She specialized in genetics and DNA analysis, testing and forensics. The Sasquatch Genome Project, the SGP, is a collaboration by an interdisciplinary team of scientists from independent public and academic laboratories, aided by volunteer researchers and supporters who seek to understand the nature of the indigenous Aboriginal people in North America, commonly known as Bigfoot or Sasquatch, primarily through the study of their DNA. The SGP's forensic DNA analysis proved the existence of these human hybrid species in a paper that appeared February 13, 2013 in the Novo Journal of Science. So, and that is the problem. The problem that a lot of people wanted to debunk this study because it was against the Gigantopithecus theory, it was against an ape theory. Dr. Melba Ketchum discovered that the mitochondrial DNA that comes from the mother's line was completely human, and the nuclear DNA that gives you the lineage of the father species, or the father, was unknown. She did find some similarities in the lemur family, but she doesn't have sure, so it was just speculation, because when the genome, because they got a lot of samples, I guess they got more than 100 samples, and they got to sequence 3 or 4 genomes complete. So when they run all the genome on the gene bank, that's a place where all the DNA analysis in the world congregate, all the species that the genome. They have like a fingerprint of those genomes, and it doesn't match anything. It didn't match gorilla, it didn't match chimpanzee, it didn't match the Gigantopithecus blacki, it didn't match anything on the father's lineage. And on the mother's, it matched human, completely human DNA. So that's why Dr. Melba got this hybrid species theory. So she thinks that Sasquatch was hybridized with human species, with more than human species, because it was not archaic. It didn't have any Neanderthal genes, and all the samples were collected from North America, and the haplotypes on the genes got haplotypes from a lot of places on the globe. a lot of haplotypes from Europe, a lot of haplotypes from Africa, some from North America. So she says that if Sasquatch was made, so someone 25,000 years ago made Sasquatch. But in reality, I think Dr. Melba Ketchum thinks that they hybridize like mother and father, and I think she's on the Catholic or some of the Christian background, so they think that they are Nephilim. She's interpreting the data like in the Bible. So when the fallen angels came into earth and procreate with the daughters of God, of man, they have done the Nephilim. So they were giants on those days. So literally like the Bible. And that's the only problem that I see on Dr. Melba. She is mixing her beliefs, her Christian beliefs with science. So, but what we can surely know with her data is that Sasquatch has really human DNA, and as we will go further in this 101 Sasquatch physical being or paranormality connection, we will see and we will speak more about this hybridization in the past. So I have read the study. I think the study it's so valid. There's enough proof that the study is valid. All the data was really well collected. All the laboratory stuff was well done. But there is something that the government and a lot of people want to hide. It's not only the people in the community that wants to put their ape theory forward. It's also the government, because these will shake the foundations of humanity. You know, it's like it's a big problem to say that some animal was mixed, artificially or not, with human species 25,000 years ago. You know, it's something that probably we are now capable with the technology of CRISPR technologies. We are capable to do, but it's unethical. We are not, at least on the record, governments are not mixing species, but we all know that some governments are capable of everything. So in their very down deep laboratories, there's some experimentation being done. So this is a very controversial matter, and even the government doesn't want to acknowledge this. So that's the big problem. So continuing with the evidence, the physical evidence, now we are going to talk about the audio evidence. So the Sierra sounds, most you probably, all of you must know, most people know, that are the most noteworthy audio recorded. They were unusual chatterings, often called the samurai chatterings, heard in an area of the High Sierras in California between 1971 and 1974. The sounds were recorded above 6,000 feet by Alberry in 1972, after he was invited to visit the hunting camp and record the supposed vocals heard since the summer of 1971. There were several sightings and large human-like footprints were found in the area. The sounds were therefore attributed to Sasquatch. So Ron Moorhead, as you probably have heard, was one of those hunters that invited Alberry to record and to the Sasquatch and the phenomenon that they were having on the camp. So, in 1977, a semi-quantitative statistical study was undertaken comparing the vocalizations with those of humans. The study was sponsored by the University of Wyoming's Department of Electrical Engineering as part of a thesis program for a Norwegian graduate student, Lars Ertel. Under the direction of Dr. R. Lynn Curlin, a professor of electrical engineering, the resulting paper, Estimates of Pitch and Vocal Tract Length from Recorded Vocalizations of Purported Bigfoot. This was the title of the paper. Statistical analysis was applied to groups of vocal tract estimates from different vocalizations, and a significant difference was found between the groups. When compared with human data, the results indicated that there could possibly be 3 speakers, one of which is non-human. The average vocal tract length was found to be 20.2 centimeters. Sorry guys, I don't know how is it in inches, but 10 inches? I don't know, really don't know. This is significantly longer than for a normal human male. Extrapolation of average estimators using human proportions gives 8 estimates of between 7'4" and 8'2". In 2008, Scott Nelson, a cryptolinguist who was trained by the United States Navy to transcribe languages, was vetted through the Defense Language Institute Foreign Language Center, and Mr. Nelson interviewed Olberry and Ron Moorhead and subsequently studied the original recorded vocalization. His conclusion was that whatever made the sounds has a very complex language by the human definition of language. So in cryptolinguists, they work for the government to decipher encrypted languages in communications, in radio, Morse code, whatever type of language that the enemy or the supposed enemy tries to pass the message. So these cryptolinguists try to catch those kind of messages. So they are trained in language, you know. But I have seen a lot of talks of Mr. Scott Nelson, and he can't go anywhere because it doesn't have the Rosetta Stone to know what which of those vowels, which of those phonemes meant. So he cannot know what they were saying. He just acknowledged that there was spoken language there, some spoken communication, some language between those creatures that were supposedly Sasquatch. So morphology and anatomy in pictures and video that are unique. I will give you guys an example from a YouTuber named Tinkatanka. He does some analysis, generally audio and video and photo, whatever he thinks that is worth comparing and analyzing, and he compares generally biometrics, morphology, mostly ratios. And if you guys don't know it, it's worth checking. He has some compelling evidence, nothing that is completely out of the chart. Any person that, or any institute or university that has the meanings, the software and the knowledge to do what it does should have done that from a while ago. He basically have given us the opportunity to understand that Sasquatch, and at least if we analyze Patty from the Patterson Gimli film, that the proportions from Patty were very different from human. As you can see in one of the figures, you have Shaquille O'Neal, you have Bob the Hoaxer. I don't know who Bob is. It's probably a figure from Bob Gimlin, because people started to say that probably that Bob Gimlin had a monkey suit to film Patty. But as you can see, Shaquille O'Neal and Bob are humans, and they have exactly the same proportions: elbow to elbow, shoulder to shoulder, wrist to wrist, knee to knee, and feet, or from their foot, their ankles. It's the same exact proportion, and completely different from Patty. So Tinkatonka started to compare all of the best evidence, and he realized that Bigfoot had a pattern. The best evidence will always compare favorably with the Patty morphology, and most all the fakes and the hoaxes are always compared, and they compare with the human morphology. So Sasquatch or Bigfoot have bigger arms, shorter legs, bigger torso than humans in completely different proportions, and you can see that evidence also in the face. As you can see on the other figure, you can see Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones, and you can see one of the Sasquatch evidence. I think it's a game camera footage where a Sasquatch comes very close and then goes away and runs away to the side. So as you can see, the proportion of the face is completely different, because the mouth doesn't go along with the mouth of humans. The proportion between the nose, the eyes, and the mouth is completely different. Sasquatch have their mouth placed under and further apart from their nose than humans, and you can change Harrison Ford and you can put whoever you want, and Tinkatonka does that in their videos. He puts a girl, he puts an Asian, he puts a Caucasian, he puts an African, he puts whatever, a big guy, small guy. The proportions in humans are always the same. Our faces are proportionate to our species, and Sasquatch have a pattern, and some of the evidence place them together with that proportion that Tinkatonka found out. But he's just seeing patterns, and it's some kind of evidence, and it's scientific evidence. It's done in a YouTube channel, so many people disregard that. They think that he's an amateur, but he really is putting some serious evidence out there, at least for someone with the knowing, in a university, in an institute, that could replicate what he's doing and put something in a more scientific way. He does also analyze a sound wave and sound and audio. He have also found out some pretty amazing things, that by comparing with other animals, by comparing with human voices, we now know that Sasquatch has a vocal range much higher than a human being. So Sasquatch can do sounds with a higher pitch in frequency, lower and higher pitch than human beings, and their howls are pretty amazing because they can maintain one note for a very long time without the wavering that is typical on most animals and humans. So if you want to see it for yourself, just check out his YouTube, and he has very good videos about audio and morphology ratios. Now we are going to analyze the second theory, the theory that does not fit everyone, the theory that does a lot of arguing on the internet, divides people, it divides the community, but we have to speak about it because it's data, and data must be new by everyone and must be analyzed. So Sasquatch and their paranormal or ET connection evidence. So we are going to speak about, like in the first one, in the first theory, we have native people folklore, we have North American, Australian, Aboriginal, etc. So a lot of folklore about a more spiritual connection with Sasquatch. So we have worldwide reports about the phenomena. So ancient manuscripts depicting Sasquatch and sky people. We have witness visual testimonies of the phenomena. For example, orbs seen along with Sasquatch, orbs becoming Sasquatch, Sasquatch and portals, UFO abductees that see Sasquatch inside alien ships. So there are a few reports of that also. We have one-on-one contact witness, example, mindspeak, audio recording, and knowledge being passed on. Some examples from the researchers that are doing that kind of thing. The most known ones, like Kiwani Labseritis, is going in Sasquatch, is doing Sasquatch research for a long time. Mike Patterson, Dr. Matthew A. Johnson, etc. Few more. And I want to add two different topics that probably most people in the Sasquatch community haven't heard of. That's remote viewing material and channeled material. So we are going into each one of these topics, and I will explain to you the evidence. It's not factual evidence and not physical evidence, but we have evidence that we have to analyze also with the paranormality connection. So the first two topics, I guess we can treat them together. I'm not going to talk a lot about this because I have done some other videos about at least European folklore, but most of you guys in North America know about North American folklore between the Native American people. They have a lot of tales and stories and legends about Sasquatch in their communities. Australian Aboriginal also. I remember that they speak about two Sasquatch, one that is more spiritual and one that is more physical. And even Aboriginal people have understood that. Worldwide reports and manuscript, I have told you before that the Vedas speak about the ape people, an ape men that were helping humans against another race. I think they were reptoids, and they were using their Vishnu, and they help humans building a cross between Sri Lanka and India. You have the Sasquatch and the manuscripts around Mesopotamia, old Mesopotamia in Babylon, about Enkidu, all of those. And I have speak in some of my videos about a very old report. I think it's 1500 in Lisbon, my city in Portugal, about a spaceship going down on the field and a big, giant, hairy humanoid coming out of it and going away into the forest. So this is 1500 Portugal, Lisbon. So there are plenty of reports, plenty of folklore, plenty of stories about the paranormal and the connection with star people in folklore worldwide. So now, orbs of light. That's the next topic, and one that I think it's of the utmost importance. So, unexplained spherical light phenomena demonstrating intelligent flight and emitting light energy. They can appear in different colors like white, blue, red, etc. So I'm going to show you guys a clip, and I want you to hear this clip and look it for yourselves.
Mira. Sí, lo tiraron, está saliendo chido. ¿De dónde dices tú? Ahí, donde mismo. Pasando la montaña, de este lado, o en el camino. ¿Dónde está la peñita esa? La peña de...
Venos acá. Todos así, una línea, todos
Ah, sí, hasta donde está.
And I want to show you guys another video footage taken in Canada, I think, and we can see the merging between orbs and Native American traditions and spirituality.
Algonquin healer and elder thinks the mysterious orbs are friendly spirits.
Whether you believe or not, it's present. It's here.
On the night the orbs appeared, Kevin said a little prayer on his way out of the building. Michael believes that Kevin's prayer may have triggered the unexplained events.
He made a little prayer of gratitude. And then when I saw the video, I said, this was a response to his prayer.
According to Michael, it's an affirmation of Kevin's work here. And as far as Kevin is concerned, the orbs can stay.
It seems right that these orbs are here. It seems appropriate.
Mike Randall, 7 News, Orchard Park.
There are also spherical metal orbs described as UAPs, flying at different altitudes like the ones captured in the recent declassified and released footage to the public by the USA official. You probably have heard of the TikTok event, the TikTok UAP. It have been talked a lot in US media, around the world also. UAPs are the new classification for the old word UFO. I think they stand by unidentified aerial phenomena, something like that. And they are the new designation that United States military classified them. It's proven that they have their own X-Files going. Now they had the Arrow Committee that is looking, constituted by the Senate to look for proof about UAPs along the Pentagon and in other military. So something is going on. There was a new whistleblower speaking about the possible crash retrieval programs that US had. They say that they had at least 12 spaceships retrieved along these more than 50 years since Roswell. So something is about to happen in the next days for you guys that don't know a lot about the UFO phenomena and are not into it and are now realizing that the UFO phenomena it's merged and it's connected with Sasquatch. So UAPs, spherical metal orbs that have intelligent flight, different altitudes, and I'm going to show you some of the footage released by the US military. These spherical metallic orbs, they are simply everywhere. I have also seen it myself twice above my city of Lisbon. I have photographed them once. You can see the photos if you want on the video Lisbon footprint video, Lisbon, Portugal. I have a video about the footprint that I found a few years ago, and on the same year I was seeing those metallic shining spherical orbs a few times above my city. So as you can see on the recent event where in Ukraine war, when the Russian MiG took down a US drone with dumping fuel, you can see coming from the left side when the MiG approaches and coming from the left side, you can see a knob coming around from the tail of the MiG, the Russian Air MiG plane. So some people say that they can be probes from the United States, like some high-tech and not released, very advanced and reverse engineered from real UFOs that the US has and is fabricating and constructing, or they can be probes from some races that are just seeing what's happening in this crazy planet right now. And by the way, I haven't seen this footage mentioned in anywhere about this UAP. It got completely unseen. These various orbs have all been seen with different colors. They've all been seen alongside Sasquatch, or Sasquatch turning into these light orbs by witnesses. There are lots of reports. They have also been seen this type of orbs. I don't know if the spherical metal ones or the pure white light and energy or other colors of orbs have been seen flying over crop circles and crop fields and making what we call the crop circles. There are an amazing old footage just showing you how an orb is capable of flying above the crop and instantly turn the crop beneath her down and do all those amazing geometrical figures. UFO, abductees and Sasquatch. So, in case you don't know, Linda Moulton Howe, she's very well known inside the UFO community. She's an investigative journalist. She's an author of various books. So Linda Moulton Howe, she's born at January 20, 1942. She's an American investigative journalist and regional Emmy Award-winning documentary filmmaker, best known for her work as ufologist and known by pioneering cattle mutilations research and their connection with UFOs. I don't know if you guys have ever heard in cattle mutilation. That's a serious thing, since I think Linda is researching for 40 years, so from 40 years in, cattle mutilations was already an issue. There are witnesses seeing flying discs, taking cattle in the air with a light beam. Cattle just appeared bloodless, without a drop of blood, with incisions near the mouth where the flesh and the hair is meticulously taken out and precisely with a surgical instrument, and around the eyes are taken out. Sometimes some organs, usually reproductive organs. So there's a lot of cattle mutilation around USA, around all the globe. I have seen it personally, and I will talk about that in the future in a Sasquatch, new Sasquatch video. But Linda is an amazing investigative journalist, and she has gathered a lot of reports, a lot of witness reports on UFOs, on abductees, and I want you guys to listen to Linda and a couple of her reports.
What controls strange harvests from animal mutilations? And I thought I would start out by just casually, in a strange way, showing you what's in my own books. This is Glimpses of Other Realities, Volume 1. And there is a picture of a little gray. There is a picture of a silver disc at a horse farm where a 1-month-old foal was found dead and mutilated. This is Missouri, and in Missouri, people watch from a road through binoculars as little gray beings floated a cow with a Bigfoot Sasquatch in the background, with a lizard at the cone. And if you kept going through, another one, even in Missouri, they had a Bigfoot character at the taking of the mutilation.
Was like spandex clinging to his body.
What color?
It seemed to be multicolored, blue and red colours. V-type detail that came out and around his shoulders. At this point in time, he was gesturing to his right. And in the darkness in front of the trees that were there were a series of beings. The mantis beings at the top. Next to that, you had the white greys, you know, the paler skin, taller being, far more sentient, kinder. Next to that was a short grey. I've seen them before, I was quite familiar with them.
Are they AI or are they organic?
Well, the ones that come down to do the dirty work, I understood them to be a biological robot. The one that is sentient, you'll notice immediate big difference. And there was a big, hairy, Wookiee-type character, like a
Sasquatch.
Sasquatch, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
What does the tall white do? You're seeing the mantis, the light grays.
So, as you guys could hear, Sasquatch is seen alongside UFOs, inside UFOs, alongside another races, and there are hundreds of reports like these ones. Reports that BFRO and other big personalities in the Bigfoot community that simply don't acknowledge. They hide. Sometimes they take the report from witnesses and they erase these parts of the report so it fits on their agenda, on their ape theory agenda. This is known. This has been that there have been people whistleblowing that this kind of thing have been happening in BFRO reports. So if you heard someone saying, "Where's the proof?" We never heard anything about that. There are hundreds, if not thousands of cases of reports, of witness reports in North America and around the globe connecting UFO and abduction with Sasquatch. One-on-one contact. So this is witness reports. Most of the people, all the people that I'm going to talk are experiences and they are researchers. Also contactees. The first one, and Kiwani Lapseritis. Kiwani has a degree in anthropology and psychology. Kiwani researched on the subject for more than 40 years on Sasquatch, and he is an author of various books on the subject. Also, as a contactee, he states that he comes across with different types of Sasquatch, like the ancient ones with the human faces and body proportions, but covered with hair. They are interdimensional and interplanetary, along with other benevolent alien races. I'm not going to lie, I love to hear Kiwani speak. He is very consistent. He, like I said, is researching Sasquatch for more than 40 years. And he has been seen by the community as being a loony, you know, because he was the first person that I know of that said that Sasquatch were interdimensional. If you go and listen to Kiwani, you will hear him tell his story about how Sasquatch visit him at his apartment, at his house in the mountain. They come in not in a human form like in Orbs. He speaks also about the deep connection between Sasquatch and star people, and how Sasquatch can heal, and how Sasquatch healed him various times, and also Sasquatch friends that he says there are star people. He said that in all these years he came across at least 5 to 6 different Sasquatch types, smaller ones, bigger ones, more with more apish faces, the ancient ones that have human faces and body proportions. So we are now speaking about again about human proportions, and And I remember you that I told you about Thinkatonka and these proportional DNA stuff. So if we are judging always the photos by that type of proportion, that the arm limbs must always be longer than the legs and longer than any human, we can dismiss some of these Sasquatch types. But in reality, these Sasquatch types, the ancient ones, they are so above us, they are so more enlightened, that I think that if they want, you simply cannot photograph them. They know before you take action, they will know what you're going to do, and that's the problem. Mainly in my experience, that's the problem in you experiencing and trying to take proof with this type of Sasquatch, the Sasquatch that comes with from outside, with aliens that are more evolved spiritually than us. They somehow can see beyond and in front of us, so they are always one step in front of us. So Kiwani, if you are into this stuff, and if you really believe that Sasquatch is spiritual, it's another type of being, or there are various types of Sasquatch coming and visiting us, you should listen to one of his talks, Kiwani Lapsaritis, okay? He is amazing, he is an amazing speaker, so I really advise you to listen to Kiwani. He's maybe 80 by now, 80 years old, so I haven't heard anything about him in the last year, so I don't know if he's still giving those speakings in conventions, and I really know, but I would love to meet Kiwani one day. Second contactee and also researcher and experiencer is Mike Patterson. You probably know Mike by his controversial YouTube channel that goes by the name Sasquatch Ontario. So Mike is a Canadian citizen, wildlife photographer and musician. Mike began sharing his experiences since 2008 on his YouTube channel, Sasquatch Ontario, and with the outstanding quality audio capture during those many years, along with the numerous footprints and paranormal one-on-one contact with an ancient forest people, made him one of the pioneers researching and bringing this to social media the paranormal side of the phenomena. So Kiwani was really the first person, but Mike was the one that really put these things out into the public and showed to everyone that Sasquatch has a paranormal side. If you go and see Mike Patterson videos and amazing audio, you will understand that they can materialize out of thin air, like he said. He did in the beginning a lot of he had a feeding station, but then he started to exchange with gifts. So a gifting station with marbles. So Sasquatch would give him marbles every time you went there. He was during the night outside and in the snow, and he was seeing footprints materializing in front of him almost, and no one was there besides him and his friend researcher. In reality, it was the owner of the property, and he developed a relationship with a Sasquatch named Nefertia, and Nefertia gave him very good audio and let him record an amazing audio that most people think that it's fake. But I have seen the audio, I have seen the fingerprints, the sound fingerprints of the audio. It's amazing. I really don't know, and even Tinker Thunker have spoken about this. He it's impossible for a human voice to replicate what Nefertia has given to Mike. So they, like the ones that were recorded at the Sierra Sounds, that guy, Scott Nelson guy, that was cryptolinguist, he discovered that those Sasquatch were speaking on the path. So they were speaking while inhaling and exhaling. We can't do that. And it's the same with Mike Patterson and the voice of Nefertia. It's really amazing. And I'm going to put a little bit so you guys can listen. But I advise you to go there, to go to Sasquatch Ontario and listen what Mike is, listen to his experiences and what he has to offer you. There are amazing audio recordings there. In the last days, he also published a photo that he has for some long years, and during that interaction with Nefertia, he started to communicate with Nefertia with a chalkboard, with written kind of messages, because they could understand English and they could write in English, although it was not well written. It looks like it was written by a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old child that started to learn to write and read. But they gave him some answers to the questions that Mike was sometimes asking them, and they asked Mike to not release the photo till now. So now Mike released the photo, and it was, people on the web went mad, saying it's a hoax, it's a fake, because it doesn't look like Patty, doesn't look like that, and it looks like a mask, and yada yada yada. I love how people know how Sasquatch looks. You don't have a body, you don't have anything, you don't know anything about Sasquatch, and you know right there that that's a mask. And I have done some analysis for my own research, and there are some pretty wild things on that photo. Maybe someday I will do a video about it and about Mike Patterson. I hope he doesn't mind, and I will talk about that. But there are some serious audio there, so you guys should go and listen to it. So our third one-on-one contactee, experiencer, researcher is Dr. Matthew A. Johnson. I recently discovered Dr. Matthew a year ago, I think, and North American clinical psychologist, author, and experiencer, claims he is in contact with the benevolent Air Force people called the Zanu, which can cross the Earth via portals from their dying home planet. You can know more on his YouTube channel. It's called Team Squatching USA. So Dr. Matthew he's a researcher for a long time. He had a sighting along with his family, and since then his research has been changing. He was like a researcher like most people are in USA. They go knock on trees and scream some owls and collect some footprints, and you can do that for 10 years and don't know and don't learn anything, because that's whatever you do. You just bang on trees, you collect footprints, that there are hundreds, so you're not learning anything. It's just how the community other community goes, it's like that, banging on trees. So Dr. Matthew Johnson, he started to gift also in a place, a secured place. He started from there till he had the experiencer and a Sasquatch that I think it goes by the name Zorb or Zorb. He talked to him via mindspeak that there were the Zanu people. They were coming hundreds or 1,000 years to Earth via portals, and that their world is on another planet or another dimension. I really don't know. Some people got to see that portal opening along with Dr. Matthew. There were 2 more witnesses and they saw that in the other side there were 2 or 3 Sasquatches, and the sky was like red colored and the trees were like dying. So there are a lot of people going to his camps. He made a camp that in the summer, I think he takes some people to camp out with him to do some talk along around the fireplace, around a big fire pit. The Zanu forest people, the Bigfoot, they interact with the visitors. There are a lot of orbs around. They also told Dr. Matthew A. Johnson that they live during the day on the trees. The orbs, they are the orbs. The orbs became the Sasquatch, and they live on the trees. So there's something to it. In my own research, I really think there's something into the trees. When we start to realize all these contactees and experiences, we start seeing that each of them seem to tell us a little different story, and the story is generally it's the same, but there are different things. So, for example, Mike Patterson, I think that Nefertia never told Mike that how they were called, or if there were various species, or if there were benevolent and malevolent ones. I think sometime he said to Mike that Dogman, they were bad, but that's it. Dr. Matthew A. Johnson, he received a message from Zorb saying that they were the Zanu, but there were another Sasquatch, the ones that are more physical, that live in the United States also. They are the Tracon, I think, and they are not so good. If they could hurt a human being because they don't like humans, because humans pursue them in the past, and so. And there are the Shusiku or Susiku also, that they are not Sasquatch, but they are like evil entities or demons that are the enemies of the Zanu, and they are constantly batting the Shushiku or Sushiku. Zanu, they are also spiritual. They have also the ability to heal. They have healed Dr. Matthew A. Johnson. They have healed a lot of people going into their camp. There are lots of witnesses of healing that have taken place in their camps. So there's something into it. Next slide, we are going to speak about Judy Carroll. I also discovered Judy a few months ago. Judy is a passionate clinical pioneer in periodontal medicine with over 33 years of experience treating and connecting with the patients. On July 31, 2016, Judy's life path would change in a significant way when an 8-foot elder Sasquatch teacher walked up to her after months of patiently guiding her through her fears during solo outings in the wilderness. He would spend years teaching her the truth about herself, the Sasquatch people, and the trees using universal symbolic language technique and meditation. Hundreds of trips alone in the wilderness with the trees and her elder Sasquatch teacher named Kombe enabled Judy to gain an education in the old ways. She is now ready to bring this knowledge to individuals ready to learn find out more at her website www.artofthewho.com. So Judy doesn't say anything about them being called Zanu, nothing about the Trachon or the Shushiku or evil entities. Combe just presented her as a elder, speaking about Sasquatch, about the trees, about nature, about how trees are important. I think there's a pattern here. If you can see that there are, in Judy's experience, Sasquatch also transform in orbs. They also go inside the trees. Trees have a very important symbiotic relation with Sasquatch and with the spiritual world and with our motherhood, Gaia. So if you want to know a little bit more about Judy Carroll and her experiences, you can visit her website. She's not on YouTube. She has one, maybe 2 or 3 interviews that you can listen if you want, instead of going into the website and just type Judy Carroll. You probably Judy Carroll and type Sasquatch or Bigfoot. Maybe you find those interviews. But that's it. I don't know a lot more. She doesn't put a lot out there on the web. So Sunbow True Brother. So Sunbow is connected with Kiwani Lapsaritis. They published some books together. So, but I'm going to read for you guys first. So Sunbow is a French-Canadian shamanic practitioner, author of the book The Sasquatch Message to Humanity, Conversations with Elder Camus. This time it's a Sasquatch elder, but the name is Camus. Sunbow received and transcribed this message from an elder Sasquatch named Camus in 2015 while in British Columbia, Canada. The Sasquatch people asked us to disseminate the information as it's a message to the world for us, each to do our part to save Earth and the human race. Our Sasquatch elders want to talk with people in a powerful decision-making capacity because someone must comprehend all the negativity that is happening and take the lead in creating a peaceful and environmentally friendly world for a healthier planet in spirit, mind and body. So the first book transcribed by Sunbow, it's Conversations with Elder Camus, The Sasquatch Message to Humanity, and there is a lot of information on that book. And Kiwani wrote some chapters of that book, or the second book of Sunbow. So Kiwani validates. For me, I see it that way. Kiwani validates the message of Sunbow, and Kiwani is in contact with the ancient Sasquatch people. So if he validates the Sunbow True Brother book and message to humanity, he is validating the conversations and all that is transcribed. So you should go and look for it, because I think the book, there's a Kindle version, and there are 1 or 2 YouTube places where you can listen to the first book in many episodes, YouTube videos. But I will tell you what it's about. So on the first video, the Camus, the Sasquatch elder, explained us how many civilizations there were on Earth since million years ago. It started with the fish people, then I think it was the ant people, and then the reptile people, bird people, Sasquatch people, and then humans. So for millions of years that civilizations and species have been evolving in this planet, with lots of wars and skirmishes that involved the planet Maldek, the planet Mars, and wars with the Draco, with the reptiles. It's something for you to listen carefully and it's a lot to believe or not. I will say that most people will have a hard time believing in all of these all of that message and the ancient history of Earth, the unacknowledged history of our human race. So Sasquatch people were here before the humans. They are here to help us transition and to help us go further, to awaken our spirituality. I would, like on the other researchers, I would advise you guys to look more into Sunbow True Brother, to his book, to his transcribed message to humanity, Sasquatch message to humanity. Okay? Remote viewing material. So what is remote viewing? Probably some of you guys have heard of remote viewing, some don't. There's a lot of remote viewing being talked now on YouTube, on the web. Some it's good remote viewing, some is just crap. People calling remote viewing to things that are not remote viewing. So remote viewing is nothing. It's not mediunic activity. It's nothing about being. It's not wizardry. So, what is remote viewing? Remote viewing, or RV, or controlled remote viewing, is CRV. It's the practice of seeking impressions about the distant or unseen subject, purportedly sensing with the mind. Typically, a remote viewer is expected to give information about an object, event, person, or location that is hidden from physical view and separated at some distance. In the early 70s, Harold Puthoff and Russell Targ joined the Electronics and Bioengineering Laboratory at Stanford Research Institute, SRI. Now it's SRI International, where they initiated studies of the paranormal. From 1978 to 1995, CIA and DIA funded a secret project called Stargate, where remote viewers successfully described Soviet weapons, submarines, and aspects of our solar system, only to be found valid later by science. And one of the most famous remote viewers, it was Ingo Swann. He indeed described the rings of Saturn before they were described. So, as you can see on these two images on the side, you can see the Eiffel Tower in Paris, and that's underneath there's like a sketch done by hand with pencil and paper, and that's how remote viewers work. They have a methodology that generally it is not mediunic, so any person can be remote viewer, and you just need to learn the method. So everything they sense, they see, they sketch, and that's a sketch from a tower and some roads and some small people leading to there, and the target that was double blind. You probably don't know, but the target, it's not a sentence. You give it in a closed envelope to the remote viewer, and it's generally a numerical code like 1, 2, 3, and that code leads to a question that is not given to the remote viewer. So they give him a closed envelope with a numerical number, and he has to do the methodology on that numerical number to a question. And the question on this sketch was probably the Eiffel Tower in Paris, France. So the remote viewer saw something like phallic shape or pyramidal shape, and he drew it with a big road and people and cars. Probably I can't see it well, but the target was indeed the Eiffel Tower. There are a lot of people, nowadays learning to remote view. A few years ago it was only a secret thing and used by the FBI and used by the government and the military. And there are now a lot of people learning how to remote view. But remote view, you have to keep on going. You cannot do it in the first days, and then you increase your accuracy, So there are very good remote viewers. One of those was Ingo Swann. There are still Ingleswan unfortunately passed away, but there are still today very good remote viewers, and remote viewing is seen as a very real thing. You probably have heard about Farsight. Farsight as a YouTube, they do a lot of targets. They are trying to redone history by validating passage on our history, like the pyramids, the Egyptians. They do a lot of stuff regarding ET and UFOs, so it's worth take a look. But with all this talk, I wanted to speak about one remote viewer. She is Laurie Williams, and I will present Laurie Williams. So since 2001, Mrs. Williams became the first certified civilian controlled remote viewing instructor, learning with Lynn Buchanan himself, one of the guys that was working on that Stargate program. So he learned the military stuff with the best. And she has been teaching an average of 1 to 5 3-day workshops on a monthly basis ever since. She has taught remote viewing in Canada, Ireland, Russia, Europe, and all over the United States. Laurie has an amazing 85 score percentage on CRV targets since she started in 1996. So that's amazing. It says that she scores 85% of the times her targets were very accurate. So Laurie Williams, she's not someone. She is one of the best remote viewers on the planet. And she did a few years ago a remote view target that was a Sasquatch target. We are going to talk about that. About one of the only targets ever made for Sasquatch. That's a pity. I would like a lot to see more remote viewers do Sasquatch targets, so we could cross information, we could validate information. But I will present you the one and the very best of the remote viewing Sasquatch target. Okay?
That was a good tip. I like that, Laurie. I actually was interested in the Bigfoot thing. I'm not familiar with your session, but just curious what you kind of got from the sessions you did.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You know, Bigfoot, the hilarious thing, guys, first I have to tell you, I have never been into Bigfoot, ever, in my life. It just wasn't on my radar. It was just nothing that ever interested me. So my full experience with Bigfoot was Harry and the Hendersons movie when I was, young. So so I have to start with that. But then I was asked by Coast to Coast Radio to do 3 blind targets and to view them, and then to reveal my results on the show. And then they would tell me, after I revealed my stuff, they would tell me their whatever the targets were. So I went ahead and I did it. Lynn and I were joking because I was like, well, this is either going to really be like the best dog and pony show ever, or I'm going to have to find a new career, once this is over, find something else to do. So I started the first session, and I was totally blind to the target, and I took the coordinates. And you know how when you first start a session, sometimes your idea about what the target might be, have any of you had this happen, where your idea about what the target might be pops into your head, and you're just like, oh no, now I think it's going to be the Taj Mahal or something, right? Have you, raise your hand if you've ever had that kind of thing happen, where you suddenly think, you know what the target is, and then you have to fight that the whole time, right? You're fighting with that whole idea that the target's going to be the Taj Mahal. Well, in this case, I started my session and immediately thought, oh no, it's going to be Bigfoot. And so I was like, oh no, it's going to be Bigfoot. So I looked up at my husband and I said, I have this idea now in my head that this target's going to be Bigfoot. And just tell me it's not Bigfoot, and that way I can just set that aside. And he just looks at me and says, go for the unknown, which is, that's a statement that we've been trained to go for. That a tough, resilient, useful remote viewer is able to handle pollution. because if you get polluted, like when you're a remote viewer, somebody's going to run up to you and just blurt out what the target is, right? Please, my kitty's missing. Can you help me find her, right? I mean, everybody has that happen. And if you can't handle a little pollution, then you're kind of useless as a remote viewer. So one thing I like to teach my students is to become very resilient. And we actually kind of teach them as they progress, not in the very beginning, but as they get more advanced, we really work with the students to develop resilience to pollution so that they can get polluted and just keep going and still view the target and do it well. So go for the unknown is something that Mel Riley and Lynn Buchanan used to frequently say to me. If I felt polluted, overly polluted, they'd say, well, a lot of times in the military, we got polluted. A general would walk in and say, hey guys, we've got a hostage crisis in Iran. Remote viewers, you guys get to work, and they were told right up front. And actually, I found it fascinating when Deborah Katz, who was examining all of Ingo Swann's original documents in the library at the University of Atlanta, where Ingo's family has donated a lot of his papers, she said she was shocked to discover that on the the Jupiter target that he did, and on several other major targets that he's famous for, he was completely front-loaded. He knew exactly what the target was before he ever started his session. And so the idea that no one should ever be polluted, you should never, ever give any front-loading, it's just not realistic. It's not that it's wrong, it's just not realistic, because in the real world, we are going to get polluted as viewers. So we have to be tough and resilient and able to handle pollution. Okay, so I thought maybe it's Bigfoot, but I just went ahead and I kept viewing. And that session ended up, Rich, you asked about it, that session ended up being one of the most profound sessions I've ever done. It was so amazing. I got to a point in the session where I was doing a technique that I call toggling the line, or surfing the quantum wave. These are just terms that I came up with for this, but it was something that happened to me after I'd been remote viewing for about 11 years. I found that sometimes when I would be doing a CRV session, now with CRV, you've got a written structure, it's very well defined, your eyes are open, and you're remote viewing, and your body is very engaged. At the same time, sometimes you can kind of slip into an ERV state, where you're kind of in a hypnagogic state. That's what ERV is. It's a hypnagogic state where you're literally kind of in the alpha to theta brainwave states. And I only say that because I have a background in hypnosis. And so with hypnosis, we do study the brainwave states. And with when you're going into a deeper state while you're remote viewing, you're usually slipping into alpha and sometimes even dipping a little bit into theta. But the difficulty, and the reason Ingo Swann used to discourage remote viewers from bilocating, is because he said, hey, this is an interview and report methodology. And when you bilocate, you stop reporting. It's like the lights are on, but nobody's home. And so the key to toggling the line or surfing the quantum wave is when you can continue to write while either bilocating or being in a very deep ERV state. And that's really, really hard. It's extremely advanced. But the first time it happened to me was mind-blowing. And I went to Mel Riley at the time and asked him about it, because he was the guy I would go to when something really weird happened that I really didn't know what that was. And he said, that's how I always remote view. He said, and I had to try to keep the superiors and the unit from realizing what I was doing, because we weren't supposed to be using ERV like that. We were supposed to just use strict CRV. So when I was doing the Bigfoot session, I got into that state, and I suddenly felt like I was really communicating with this being, almost like mind to mind, and it was fascinating to me. And what I understood from that session was that, and I thought this was so radical, and that I wasn't even how could I even say this on Coast to Coast radio? And then I found out most people who are really into Bigfoot already knew this, but I had no idea. But basically, as a skunk uses its smell as a defense, and a snake, for example, a rattler, has its venom as its defense, the defense of Bigfoot or Sasquatch is the ability to time travel. And so, and the thing about it is, what I understood, if I was understanding everything correctly, is that Bigfoot can suddenly be in a different time, but it stay in exactly the same space. So, for example, where I'm sitting right now, I've got a house around me, but imagine 100 years ago. This house wasn't here 100 years ago. In fact, 100 years ago, this was probably a pinto bean field where I'm sitting right now. So imagine if I could suddenly just step back in time, I'd be sitting in a pinto bean field. But it would be a great defense if someone was suddenly burst into the house and wanted to kill me, and I suddenly vanished, but I would still be in the exact space, but sitting in 100 years back in time. And so I asked a lot of questions during that time and got a lot of information, and then I shared it all on Coast to Coast Radio, thinking, oh, this sounds insane. People are going to think I've lost my marbles. But in reality, I found out, no, actually, it's a common thing. And I asked Mel and a Navajo friend. Mel was part of the Ho-Chunk tribe, and he wasn't by blood a Ho-Chunk, but he had grown up in the tribe, and they accepted him as one of their own. And he said, yeah, everybody knows that Sasquatch is a time traveler. And then I was speaking to a Navajo friend, and he said, everybody knows that Sasquatch is a time traveler. So here I thought I'd gotten this really radical new information, and everybody was like, oh man, everybody knows that. But and Mel told me a fascinating story that there's a Ho-Chunk legend about a young guy who was on his vision quest, to prove his manhood, and he became very ill and passed out. And when he awoke, he was in a Sasquatch encampment. And the Sasquatch, brought him back to health and then took him back to his own camp. And when he walked in, no one recognized him because it was 75 years later. So I thought that was pretty fascinating.
So it's indeed really amazing, Mrs. Laurie. But I just want to say that most people don't know that Sasquatch is a time traveler, unfortunately. I really do, because on my own research I realized that, but that's another story. So, guys, after we heard Mrs. Laurie speaking about her remote reviewing session, I'm going to share to you guys that remote viewing, the sketches and all of what happened. So remote viewing summary report session 1CT-CCW128011. This is the code that she was double blinded. She never saw the question about Sasquatch. They only gave her this number of session, and she did the session. So prior to viewing this target, I was given the information. The target is biological, describe the target. They only said to her that the target was biological. Beginning the session, about halfway down on page 1, I had a sudden knowing sense that the target must be Bigfoot or Sasquatch. We call an assumption of this sort analytic overlay, or AOL, because it comes from the conscious mind regardless of whether the assumption is correct or incorrect. It is still an assumption, and even more importantly, it is a noun. Nouns tend to identify rather than describe, so my job as a remote viewer at this point was to simply set the assumption aside and continue with the session. So you can see the sketch that Laurie did, some kind of a human figure with hair, fuzzy thing, and she started to write on the side the physical descriptions that she sensed about the subject. So she wrote humanoid, brown, furry, hairy, big, tall, really tall, thin, bipedal, erect, stinky, emollient, gamey, smelly, dirty, greasy, thick-haired, ugly, big teeth, stinky breath, long arms and legs. So this was page number 1. We're going to page number 2. And protruding mouth and lower jaw. So these were the first words that she wrote. And then about the environment, the habitat, the location, she wrote green, bushy or brushy, thick, humid, swamp-like, crunching sounds, snapping sounds, very dark, inky darkness, cooler, damp, more damp, high-pitched sounds, squeaking, flapping sounds, grunting sounds. At this point, the words portal and interdimensional came to me. I had the sense of the blackness all around me. The sounds of what I interpreted to be bats also seemed to be surrounding me. I wanted to stop the session, but I continued. My monitor said, move to the thinking process of the biological and describe. So she described the thinking process. Foreign, very different, abstract, I cannot relate, intelligent, cunning, hunter-gatherer, feels a need to hide, alone. Moving to the original or origin on Earth of the biological, and then she wrote. So this is the original origin on Earth of the entity or the biological that she was trying to describe of her target, but she did not know that she was describing Sasquatch. So she wrote blue, green, hot, beautiful, cool, damp, humid, misty. It feels like a place that no longer exists. Long, long ago, originated on this planet between 20,000 and 25,000 years ago. If you remember this date, it does connect, and it's the same date that the DNA study from the Genome Project of Dr. Melba Ketchum says about where the genome and what about were the origins of that genomes that she sequenced from the samples that she had of Sasquatch. Dr. Melba always said 20 to 25,000 years ago, Sasquatch was a product of hybridization between modern humans' DNA and something else. But remember, guys, modern human DNA is just what we can say about it now, because a big percentage of our DNA is considered junk. And it's considered junk not because it's junk, but because you don't know what every one of those genes do. So they call it junk. If there is an alien race that it's very similar to us, and if we analyze the DNA, it's probably going to give modern DNA, because the software cannot differentiate the pairs of junk DNA that the software don't know. So until we have better software and better DNA editing and better DNA software, we will miss those finesse things about DNA sampling. Okay, so keep that in mind. So continuing, they came back and forth through a time portal. The time portal exists in a great darkness within a cave-like structure. Okay, she was describing a portal inside a cave and not describing a portal outside. So description of the time portal. It's dark, vibrating, deep underground. The darkness is almost tangible. It is so thick. They move so quietly back and forth. Conversation with the Sasquatch-like consciousness. At this point in the session, I began conversing with what I consider to be the collective consciousness of which we refer to as Sasquatch. So this is not normal in CRV or in remote viewing, but sometimes it happens. There are some remote viewers, especially when they are remote viewing some alien species. Those alien species can perceive that you are remote viewing them. And the amazing part, at some of those aliens that were remote viewed, they were in the past. Imagine you remote viewing an alien ship with alien pilots 10,000 years ago, and you go into the past and you remote view what's happening inside that ship, and the alien inside the ship looks at you and know that you are remote viewing him 10,000 years in the future. So the quantum universe and the quantum laws that we are now starting to reach, it's amazing. Our universe, it's complete. Our universe, our physics, the physics of our universe are completely paranormal to us. We don't know anything. We are a very, very child in the make race inside this universe. We don't know anything. We do smartphones, we do all these softwares and gear, and we think we are smart, but we are just a small toddler in this universe. So I'm going to continue, and she was going to speak and conversing with the Sasquatch-like consciousness. And so Lori said, "Why are you here?" And the consciousness of Sasquatch said, "Why are you here? You have a reason to be on Earth. We are surviving. We are beings like you. We simply want to thrive. We want to love our offspring and our mates and enjoy our homes in peace." At this point, I was asked to move to the beginning of the BIOS time on Earth and describe. Green, hot, steamy, densely forested, millions of years ago. And Lori asks, "How did you come to be here?" We were brought here. We share a different density. We are able to come and go through time-space portals. It is often not intentional and feels uncontrolled. Conversation between Lori and the group consciousness of what we call Sasquatch continues. And Sasquatch says, "We slip into other time frames. We remain in the same space, which makes it look as though we disappear. But we find ourselves in a distant time. This allows us to survive in hostile environments because we seem to slip away frequently. We also find abundant food for our plant diet." Note, they slip back and forth into different time slots, and since they live in forested areas and usually slip into time backwards into the past, they escape predators and find lush vegetation in which to hide and eat. Lori said, "How do you feel about humans?" Sasquatch: "Humans are our natural enemy. We feel that humans are predators and savage. We are peace-loving and originated genetically and physically in a very peaceful world, a peaceful dimension. Humans are very violent and have a very strong odor, which we find to be very unpleasant. They are very predatory and like to hunt us." Now, regarding the ability to move through time. Just as skunks have an odor defense and other animals have natural cloaking or camouflage, our ability to slip backwards and forwards through time is our natural defense. So Lori said, "How do you move through time?" And Sasquatch conscience said, "Like other animals, our mechanism is triggered naturally to defend us. We do not understand the mechanism. Just as a rattlesnake doesn't understand the mechanism of how venom comes through his fangs, we do not know we move through time. The mechanism is triggered by fear. Love is the key to draw us together, so we do not become separated from our loved ones in the vast expanse of time. Love is a powerful force, much like gravity. The laws of gravity determine that which goes up must eventually come down, on Earth at least. The laws of love simply act as magnets or ties through time to bring us back with our loved ones. We share a harmonic frequency that matches and allows us to always find our familial beings." At this point, I noted that I feel as though I am getting these answers from the group consciousness or subconscious minds of Sasquatch, put into a language that I am able to understand. My monitor asked, "Could there be a biblical tie to Sasquatch?" There was total silence in my mind, as thought the group conscience is totally unaware of what the Bible is. Continuing, Lori asks mentally, "What kind of lifespan do you have?" Sasquatch says, 150 years. Monitor asks if there is any relation between orbs and the biological. Lori said to her monitor, "Orbs are separate beings, totally separate from Sasquatch, from another dimension and much more ethereal than Sasquatch. Sasquatch is much more corporeal." as we prepared to end the session, the monitor asked anything else, a message to humanity. So she really didn't let Sasquatch respond to that about orbs, and she gave a response. I think it was wrong because Sasquatch he didn't bother to give her an answer, maybe because she answered wrong or not, but we will never know. So the message to humanity, we are going to continue. And Sasquatch said, "We have existed on Earth for millions of years and will continue here longer after humanity ceases to exist on this planet. We are able to escape any disaster. Unlike humans, we are limited to one time space package per lifetime. Therefore, humans should use their time package wisely and love rather than war. Enjoy your families and live in love." Session end. So we have the analytics of the session now. I can read it for you guys. Controlled remote viewing is not a perfect science, and it should be noted that anytime a remote viewer is remote viewing a target which is esoteric in nature, that is, having no solid proof, able feedback with which to compare session perceptions with provable reality, the results of such a session must be taken with a grain of salt. The results of such a session can only be weighted based on a tried and proven track record of the remote viewer. My track record in the professional remote viewing database is 87%. Another thing to consider when looking to remote viewing in general is that it is possible to remote view a collective idea. For example, let's say that a remote viewer is given the target of Santa Claus. Santa Claus is a very well-known character in the minds of billions all over the earth. Therefore, it is bright red suit, his shiny black belt and his slate, led by reindeer, are also well known and established through forms. It can be easily picked up by any good remote viewer. So prior to this session on Bigfoot, we have never been at all interested in the subject of Bigfoot or Sasquatch. I've never read books about the subject, nor I have watched any documentaries, YouTube videos, etc. It just has never been an area that drew my attention. Nevertheless, I could be picking up on the other people think, believe, and create regarding Bigfoot. My remote viewing session cannot be considered proof or anything for that reason. While doing this session, I did feel that I was connected somehow, and information about time portals and moving back and forth through time as a defense mechanism caught me totally by surprise. Fascinating. I hope you have enjoyed reading this report as much as I enjoyed the remote viewing that I participated in it. Okay guys, so this was the original document that is on Laurie Williams' website. So you can go and take a look. It is really valid. It is the copy of the remote viewing session. Okay, so like Laurie says, it must be taken with a grain of salt, but remember, she has 87% of accuracy on her targets, and that's amazing. That's an amazing report. Time traveling, portals, interdimensional, going into the past, slipping into the past whenever they want. That's what they do, folks.
I wanted to add that remote viewing would be very interesting. We should remote view various experiences with Sasquatch. We should remote view the Patty incident and all the incidents and the experiences that people had that are taken seriously, where you have good audio or good video or good photos. You should remote view all those incidents, because if we are pursuing the idea that Sasquatch could be various species coming from various places as interdimension, or from the past, or from another planet coming along with another alien race as a companion, or as a slave, or as a worker. There are a lot of possibilities going on, and we have to cover them all. And remote viewing, it's the perfect tool to do that. channeled material, the law of one. You guys, some of you know what channeling is, others don't know. Channeling, it's like incorporating with another being. It's the benevolent, how can I say it? It's the benevolent way of incorporation. So people can channel an entity, and that entity could speak through your voice, but is not in full control of your body, but you let that being enter your mind and use your body to articulate and to articulate speech. So that's channeling. A lot of people do channeling nowadays, but a few decades ago there were very important channelers with lots of material being facilitated and shared. There were books written. One of them, it's the Law of One. So the Law of One material is a series of 106 conversations called Session between Don Elkins, professor of physics and a UFO investigator, and Ra, speaking through Carla Rocket between 1981 and 1984. Ra states that it, or they, are a 6-density social memory complex that formed on Venus about 2.6 billion years ago. Ra says that they are humble messengers of the Law of One, and that they previously tried to spread this message in Egypt with mixed results. Quote, I am Ra, the Law of One, though beyond the limitations of name, as you call it, vibratory sound complexes, may be approximated by stating that all things are one, that there is no polarity, no right or wrong, no disharmony, but only identity. All is one, and that one is love light, and light love, the infinite creator. Close quote. There are at least 3 or 4 books, 109 sessions, and some of those sessions were, some questions were answered and were made about Sasquatch. And Sasquatch was topic of conversation that I will share with you guys. So in session number 9, the questioner, and as you can see on the first slide, Don Elkins, the professor of physics, was seated over his sofa, and the girl, Carla Rocket, was leaning down on her bed, and the entity Ra was speaking through her. Ron was recording all the conversations. So in session number 9, the questioner asked, were the entities of the Red Planet following the Law of One prior to leaving the Red Planet? And Ra answered, the entities of the Red Planet were attempting to learn the laws of One, which form one of the primal distortions of the Law of One. However, the tendencies of these people towards bellicose actions caused such difficulties in the atmospheric environment of the planet that it became inhospitable for third density experience. So third density experience is what we are today as humans. We are third density experience. We are carnal beings with flesh and blood. And they are speaking about Mars and Maldek, I think. It became inhospitable for third density experience before the end of its cycle. Thus the Red Planet entities were unharvested and continued in our illusion to attempt to learn the Law of One. So all that people died and their souls were not harvested, and they continued in the cycle of incarnation into the planet Earth. So that's what he's saying. And the questioner said, how long ago did this transfer occur from the Red Planet to Earth? And Ra answered, I am Ra. In your time this transfer occurred approximately 75000 years ago. And the questioner said, so 75,000 years ago? And Ra answered, I am Ra. This is approximately correct. Questioner, were there any entities of this form that I am now, 2 arms, 2 legs, on this planet before this transfer occurred? And Ra answered, I am Ra. there have been visitors to your sphere at various times for the last 4 million of your years, speaking approximately. These visitors do not affect the cycling of the planetary sphere. It was not third density in its environment until the time previously mentioned. So before 75,000 years ago, all of the beings in planet Earth were not third density, they were second density, so they were considered like more animals than third density beings that are modern humans now, with soul, perception of afterlife, God, and all of that. So 75,000 years ago, people from the red planet started incarnate on Earth. They were not the only ones, but many people from the planet, the red. So continuing on session 9, the questioner asked, then there were second density entities here prior to approximately 75,000 years ago. What type of entities were these? And Ra answered, the second density is the density of the higher plant life and animal life, which exists without the upward drive towards the infinite. These second density beings are of an octave of consciousness, just as you find various orientations of consciousness among the conscious of entities of your vibration. The questioner, did any of these second density entities have shapes like ours, 2 arms, 2 legs, head, and walk upright on 2 feet? And Ra answered, I am Ra, the 2 higher of the sub-vibrational levels of second density beings at the configuration of the biped, as you mentioned. However, the erectile movement which you experienced was not totally affected in these beings, who were tending towards the leaning forward, barely leaving the quadruple position. The questioner, where did these beings came from? Were they a product of evolution, as it is understood by our scientists? Were they evolved from the original material of the earth that you spoke of? Ra answered, I am Ra, this is correct. The questioner, do these beings then evolve from second density to third density? And Ra answered, I am Ra, this is correct. Although no guarantee can be made of the number of cycles it will take an entity to learn the lessons of consciousness of self, which are the prerequisite for transition to third density. And the questioner, is there any particular race of people on our planet now who were incarnated here from the second density? And Ra answered, I am Ra. There are no second density consciousness complexes here in our sphere at this time. However, there are 2 races which use the second density form. One is the entities of the planet sphere you call Maldek. These entities are working their understanding complex through a series of what you call karmic restitution. They dwell within your deeper underground passageways and are known to you as Bigfoot. So they are using second density bodies, but they are at least third density frequency beings. The other race is that being offered the dwelling in this density by guardians who wish to give the mind-body-spirit complexes of those who are of this density at this time appropriately engineered physical vehicles, as you would call these chemical complexes, in the event that there is what you call nuclear war. So there is another race beyond that called Bigfoot, that is also a Bigfoot race, but was put here as a vehicle for in case we have nuclear war. So if we need bodies to continue living in this planet, and this planet is completely toxic with nuclear waste, these types of Sasquatch beings are capable of continuing living. And the questioner asked, I didn't understand what these vehicles or beings were for there. For that we are appropriate in the event of nuclear war? Ra, I am Ra. These beings which exist in instinctual second density beings which are being held in reserve to form what you called a gene pool in case these body complexes are needed. These body complexes are greatly able to withstand the rigors of radiation which the body complexes you now inhabit could not do. Questioner, where are these body complexes located? Ra, I am Ra. These body complexes of the second race dwell in inhabited deep forest. There are many in various places over the surface of your planet. So guys, they are speaking about a second race of Sasquatch that was put on Earth in our forests in case we have nuclear war. They are nuclear war resistant and they can manage toxic waste. So the questioner asked again, are they Bigfoot type creatures? And Ra answered, I am Ra. This is correct, although we could not call these Bigfoot, as they are scarce and they are very able to escape detection. The first race is less able to be aware of proximity of other mind-body-spirit complexes, but these beings are very able to escape due to their technological understandings before their incarnations here. These entities of the glowing eyes are those most familiar to your peoples. And the questioner asked, then there are two different types of Bigfoot, correct? And Ra answered, I am Ra. This will be the final question. There are three types of Bigfoot, if you will accept that vibratory sound complex used for three such different races of mind-body-spirit complexes. The first two we have described. The third is a thought form. So thought forms are confusing to me and to explain to you, but thought forms are made through thought. It's like a conscious idea that gets birth, that gets on the universe by simply his word being pronunciated. So it's a thought that gains form and eventually becomes something. So very complex thing here. I really struggle with thought forms, but they, as you can see in the law of one that was transcribed and was shared with from Ra in 1981, 1984, they were by that time speaking about three races of Sasquatch. So session number 10, questioner, was the body complex available at that time, what we refer to as ape type? And Ra said, that is correct. Questioner, and have any of the Maldek entities transformed now? Are they now still second density, or are they forming some third density planet now? And Ra said, the consciousness of these entities has always been third density. The alleviation mechanism was designed by the placement of this consciousness in second dimensional physical chemical complexes which are not able to dexterous or manipulative to the extent which is appropriate to the workings of their third density distortions of the mind complex. Questioner, well, have any of these entities moved on now, made, shall we say, graduation at the end of a 75-year cycle and gotten out of this second density body into third density type bodies? And Ra responded, I am Ra. Many of these entities were able to remove the accumulation of what you call karma, thus being able to accept a third density cycle within a third density body. Most of those beings, so succeeding, have incarnated elsewhere in the creation of the succeeding cycle of third density. As this planet reached third density, some few of these entities become able to join the vibration of this sphere in the third density form. There remain a few who have not yet alleviated, through the mind-body-spirit coordination of distortions, the previous action taken by them, therefore they remain. Questioner, are these the Bigfoot you spoke of? Ra answered, I am Ra. These are one type of Bigfoot. Questioner, Dr. Monroe, I understand brought a four-tailed Bigfoot cast by here the other day. Could you tell me which form of Bigfoot that cast was? And Ra answered, I am Ra, we can. Questioner, I know it is totally unimportant, but as a service to Dr. Monroe, I thought that I should ask that. And Ra answered, I am Ra. This entity was one of a small group of thought forms. So as you can see, thought forms leave prints. In this case it was a four-toed print. And some of my theories, and in my mind, I think that some of those beings that we are seeing, and people are seeing three toes and three-toed prints and some dogmen, they can be thought forms, believe me. Okay, so continuing. Questioner. He also asked, and I know this is important, why there were no Bigfoot remains found. That is, after the Bigfoot entities had died on our surface, he asked why there had never been any remains of these entities found. Could you answer this for him? It's just of no importance, but just as a service to him I ask it. And Ra answered, I am Ra. You must suggest that exploration of the caves which underlie some of the western coastal mountains regions of your continent will one day offer such remains. They will not be generally understood if this culture survives in its present form long enough in your time measurement for this possibility vortex to occur. You probably are very confused by now, and I recommend you read it all again, all the sessions on the Law of One, and if you're interested you can download or you can buy the books of Law of One. There are some concepts that are very complicated, third density forms, second density forms, thought forms, but the entity called Ra, that he speaks in the name of a complex, he does not speak in his name. It's like more of as a community or as a social memory complex. He shares a lot of information about the universe, about everything, about good and right or wrong, about alien races, about races that are in service to self or service to others. So service to self races are, like you said, races that only do things for themselves, so they can be considered malevolent, and service to others are the races considered benevolent. But there is no bad, there is no wrong, there are two ways of reaching the infinite creator, Ross says. So keep in mind that. And as you can see, in 1981 there were people talking about 3 different types of Sasquatch, including the red glowing eyes, the 4-toed footprints, thought forms. This is a lot to chew, and I'm not saying that is right. I'm just sharing with you guys all the information about the paranormal, you know. So you have to keep that in mind, and you have to rearrange all these ideas in your head and try to figure out what the most compelling and what could be the truth. Okay, another case of channeling and another channeled material is Bashar. You probably know Bashar, like the Law of One. Some of you do, some of you don't, some of you like it, some of you think it's completely hoax, but my job is just to share. And Bashar have spoken about Sasquatch. So who is Bashar? Bashar is a physical SSunny race ET. So SSunnies are hybrids of greys and humans, but they have various types of hybrids, various races, and they, as Farsight, the remote viewing channel, and some remote viewers have done a remote viewing session on Bashar. They conclude that he was like an androgynous ET and benevolent, or with an agenda that is not malevolent towards humans. So we take it with a grain of salt. So Bashar is a physical SSunny race ET, a friend from the future who has spoken for the past 37 years through channel Daryl Anka. Daryl Anka is the guy that you see on the photo, and he channels Bashar live for a restricted number of people, and he is at least comic but very assertive person. I like to hear him. I take it with a grain of salt because I know that aliens have agendas and they are not always sharing all that they know. Bashar, Daryl Anka, continuing. He has brought through a wave of new information that clearly explains in detail how the universe works and how each person creates the reality they experience. So Bashar speaks about you create your own reality and the multiple universes, parallel universes that you are constantly sliding in, but it depends what you choose. If you choose to bring today your red Nike shoes or your green Nike shoes, you are going in two different parallel universes that day. If you choose the red ones or the green one, so you are choosing and sliding every second into parallel universes. So you are choosing your own path in the universe. Take it as a grain of salt. It's completely mind-boggling theories, so it's not easy to understand and to bring it into our core and to interiorize, but that's what he said. He have spoken about Sasquatch. So Christopher Munch, the guy that directed and realized the video, the movie Tales from the Big Guy or Letters from the Big Guy, it's a movie about Sasquatch, the environmental Sasquatch, and he has a channel that is Fur and Cedar and has done an interview on my Patterson in Sasquatch, Ontario. So he was one of the few people that went and interacted with Nefertia, Chris Munch. So Chris Munch went to Bashar and asked him like a private session. Bashar have spoken about Sasquatch, so we are going to hear it.
On our Facebook page concerning ancient history and possible extraterrestrial intervention in the genetic evolution of our species, we offer a short statement by the entity known as Bashar, who has been channeled for some 25 years by Daryl Anka. Some of you may be familiar with Daryl and Bashar. We greatly admire their work and thank them for the opportunity to excerpt their response to our question on this topic.
In what you call ancient times, there was a naturally evolved hominid on your planet. Many branches of this naturally existing hominid were genetically altered by extraterrestrial races into what you now recognize as your human species. But there were branches that were not altered genetically. The branches that continue to evolve from the naturally occurring evolved species turned into Sasquatch. That, in other words, is what you all would have been had there not been extraterrestrial genetic alteration. That is what your natural evolution would have taken you to. All of you. You understand?
Yes. So for our people to feel a sense of homecoming in reuniting with the Sasquatch is a real
yes.
thing.
They are, in many ways, your ancient relatives.
Yeah.
And they have learned, by remaining connected to nature, to operate in nature in a variety of ways that your people have not really learned, let alone been aware, is possible, in terms of traveling through different parallel realities when they wish.
Yeah.
At will.
One final note.
So you just heard Bashar speaking about Sasquatch. He says that Sasquatch, it's the evolution, the normal evolution of man if we haven't been DNA altered by our people a few thousand years ago. It doesn't match the DNA Genome Project because we are seeing on Sasquatch, we are seeing more than human DNA. So hybrid theory, it's much better. And the evidence points to hybrid theory. Why do I don't believe in everything that aliens say? In the first place, why do I think that they are aliens? Some of those channels, like Bashar, I think they are really... Daryl Anka is really like a puppet to that alien race. They have their agendas. Even if they don't are oppressive or they don't are malevolent, they have their own agendas. They don't tell you all. They don't lie, but they don't tell, they omit most of the things because of the principle of free will. But in this case, is stating that Sasquatch is the natural evolution of a primitive hominid. And if we modern humans, we haven't been altered by star people, by alien race, we would have turned into Sasquatch. It doesn't match the DNA studies, because Dr. Melba Ketchum have found out that Sasquatch DNA has modern human sequences and unknown sequences from the genome data bank. So if it would be a normal evolution, we would have known that all of that DNA would be from Earth, and we can't figure out where the paternal lineage of the DNA is coming from. So as you can see, all of these channeled materials, the remote viewing thing, all those researchers like Mike Patterson, Sunbow through Brother, Kiwani, they all tell us different stories. Some of them are much alike, but they differ from each other. And this is confusing, that this makes you think that all of this is bullshit, all of this is hoax, but I really think that we are probably experiencing various species, various different origins. So imagine that each of them are different species telling their own truth. So they aren't really lying. They are telling the truth to Mike Patterson. They are telling the truth to Kiwani. They are telling the truth to Bashar. And Bashar is telling the truth that he wants, because it is in some way, in some parallel universe, in some other dimension. Probably Sasquatch is the natural evolution of a primitive hominid, but there are more. And the principle of free will doesn't allow most of the benevolent alien races to tell us what's going on this universe. They want us to figure out. So a part of our learning in the universe, of our personal and inner learning, it's to understand these relations with Earth, these relations with things that we really don't know, to connect us with our spiritual path. And it would be easier for them to come to us and say, oh, this is like this or like that, and we would have said, oh, okay, nice, and 5 minutes after we were picking our smartphones and doing another thing without learning, in fact without learning anything, because we have everything given to us for free. And I think this is a spiritual path. My best guess is that everything is true. Each of one of these races that are contacting these people are telling their own truth, and the community is trying to understand all of this, but they are starting from a point where they think that Sasquatch is only one species, one being, and it simply doesn't fit. So our best choice is that Sasquatch, it's a type of humanoid frequent in our universe, with different races, with different proveniences, and probably different agendas. Could they also be malevolent? I really don't know. The ones in my own experiences are all good. I haven't had any feeling about something bad, but you also put outside what you feel and what you fear, and if you fear a lot, you will probably attract a lot of fear-based experiences. And that's also learning. You have to learn how to control that fear, how to overcome that. But I do think that you have to stay positive. You have to want to interact with the benevolent ones. And I think the majority of Sasquatch are benevolent creatures. But they will not give you the answers for free. This is a path, and you have to walk that path to understand and to realize. This is a very long video, and I want to thank you guys, for the ones who had the patience to see it all. I would like to thank you. It was a very important video for me, because I had to show you what is my base, what is the things that I believe. Is the research that I base my own theories, what I look for, what I think, and then I can start showing you more of my own experiences. I know that people that are new subscribers usually don't see the videos the older videos, but you should. At least this one. This is like a 101 basic Sasquatch understanding. So I hope you like it. It's a little bit confusing, but what in Sasquatch is not confusing? So thank you again, and I'll see you guys on the next video, okay? Bye bye.